Re-
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me? Three students are there. Can I know whether I am audible to you?
Yes, madam.
Right. Only three students are there. So what shall we do? Shall we start the discussion? Okay. Otherwise, time is passing and the others will come. Okay, right. Yeah. So I'm going to share the screen now. After again some time we are doing the work, right? Because last week we did not do the work, no. We couldn't do this lecture during last week. Just check whether you remember what we have been discussing last, right? Hope you remember about this structural approach. I discussed about a lot of things about structural approach earlier. Okay, so these are the previous slides. Right, principles of structural approach, and then advantages as well as limitations of structural approach. Okay, so I'm not going to repeat anything about structural approach now. All right, as we have already discussed that area, and still in the same unit number 3, I'm moving on to the next topic, right? This is about communicative approach. Right. Then and there, very often, I think you are meeting these terms during our discussion. Sometimes you may be repeating these concepts, right? These topics in other modules as well, right? My point is, these are quite common, frequently occurring concepts in the field of education, especially when you talk about methods of teaching a language, right? We can't leave out about CLT, basically termed as communicative approach, right? Okay. Just like the old methods are given in grammar, translation method, audiolingual method, and direct method. Then when we come toward the modern methods, right? We have this structural approach, gradually coming to the modern methods, and then communicative approach, right? Okay, so today I'm going to start the discussion with communicative approach, leading to the next topics on the trends, current trends, right? And hopefully I'll be starting the next unit as well today itself, right? Okay. And before that, I need a small feedback from you. Actually, feedback in the sense now I was asked to speed up, right? The process, because now we have some more sessions to go. So before I start to talk about this topic, may I know from you all whether you are like free of lectures in any day, because I just want to know whether there is a possibility for me to fix some extra sessions, as I have some more topics to be covered, right? For that purpose, may I know whether you have, like, you don't have any days where you don't have lectures? Can somebody please update me regarding that matter?
Madam,
Yeah, Sumaya.
we have, yeah, ma'am, we have 6-day lectures, madam.
Oh, you have lectures in all the 6 days. Only one day you're
Yeah,
free.
yeah, ma'am.
Okay, then it's not
Yeah, Sunday.
Sunday you all are free, right? Okay, there has to be a free day,
Yeah.
right? So you can't be occupied in all 7 days per week. So we'll see then, right? We'll see, because I got to know that you are going to have your exams on December.
Don't know, ma'am.
I also don't know. I
Yeah.
was told like that. So that is why this need to speed up. But anyway,
Uh,
we'll see, Sumaya, like if I can use some more weeks in December also, right? Then there
uh,
won't be any problem. We'll see anyway, right? I'll talk with Mr. Rishad.
yeah, ma'am. Last month, we had 2 3 days, madam.
Okay. Yeah. But now if you have only one free day, you just have it, right? We don't have to like busy go. We don't. Anyway, nobody likes to work in all the days. No, it's not good. Anyway, so
Yeah,
I
ma'am.
think we will continue up to December.
Oh,
Anyhow, I will just get it clarified from Mr. Risha, right? If there's a possibility, then I will work on more sessions on December. Otherwise, I will have to make it short, right? We'll see.
oh,
Okay.
okay, ma'am.
All right. Well, then we'll move on to the work. This is on communicative approach as I introduced. And what I was telling is that these are quite common words, right? Communicative approach, quite common concepts and methods. So as a whole, you have to have a very clear understanding and knowledge about these major approaches and methods. Okay, right. So when you particularly talk about communicative approach, then what are the features there, right? When we talk about the communicative approach in teaching a language, these are the points that should be highlighted wherever, whenever you talk about communicative approach, you can't leave out these ideas. What are they actually, right? Linguistic competence. We focus in communicative approach, the linguistic competence, right? The learner who has linguistic competence alone will be able to utilize the language and when he requires it, right? Linguistic competence. Now, you know about competence. I think earlier I have discussed about competence and in coming topics, I think you are going to meet competence. Competence is not a new word, right? When we talk about competence, there are different forms of competence. Linguistic competence means having a knowledge about a language, right? Having a knowledge about how language functions, mechanisms of language. When we talk about functions of language, actually, there are so many different components in any language, right? Any language, like different layers. Language functions, no, sound level, word level, sentence level, and meaning level. So, if we identify a person has linguistic competence, then that person should have a clear, proper, accurate knowledge and also an ability to use language in all these layers. That is the basic idea behind the term linguistic competence, right? And when you talk about different forms of linguistics, they are the ones we are talking about, right? Yeah, all the forms of linguistics. So I'm not going to read all these lines all the time. They are given to for you to clearly move on to these concepts, right? Otherwise, they don't contain further informations, nothing like that. But you need to get the basic idea along with these lines, right? So then, when we talk about communicative approach, then the connection is we highlight the linguistic competence, right? Along with different forms of language or linguistics, as well as developing skills and strategies for using the language, right? Yeah, skills and strategies. Usually we talk about language skills, right? That is not a new term, no? Language skills, listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Other than that, some strategies also for using the language. So the learner, if we identify a learner has linguistic competence, he should have, right, an ability to use language, to use particular skills and strategies in using any language, especially the target language, right? All these features are there inside this linguistic competence when we talk about communicative approach, basically, right? So look at this part. To be an effective user of language, he should be trained in different strategies also, which could be applied to using the language in different situations. Okay, the same language doesn't apply to all the situations. From situation to situation, from user to user, from speaker to speaker, from topic to topic, the language changes. And the learner should be aware of that fact, and the learner should be able to change language depending on these various factors. Having an ability is also included in linguistic competence, right? And also talking about communicative approach, we have to focus on social background as well, right? Yeah, social background, you know, about this idea. Yeah. Just go through these lines. English is learned as a second language. Yeah, that means the learners have to use the language in society. And man is known by his company, and that way, only when he has the right type of environment in society, he will show interest in learning the target and using it in society. Right. So society should be a ground for the learner to practice what he learned. Right. And there's this additional point about audience, right? The speaker should use the language suitable to the requirements of the audience. Then only he is said to have used language rightly. Okay, that is the very point I told you few seconds ago. That means the learner should have a clear ability and an awareness, right, or knowledge to use the language appropriately. You know about the relationship between language and society, which is discussed in the branch of linguistics called social linguistics, right? It is in social linguistics that we talk about the varieties of language, how the language, any language, right, can change according to so many factors like what? Geographical differences, according to the occupation of the person, according to class divisions, right? And family background, socioeconomic status, even gender, right? etc. These are the main sociological factors according to which language changes. Accordingly, we have different language varieties. You know about these things, right? In HNDE, you have learned about dialects, right? Registers, styles, and socialect, regionalect, idiolect, right? etc. So these are different varieties of language that can be decided according to these sociological factors. So the learner should have a clear understanding about this aspect, how he should use language appropriately to the situation. Okay, that is one point talking about the social background, right? The other point is audience. Having an idea about what the audience expects from him. This audience can be just the single listener in front of the speaker, or can be a group of people, right? So the speaker's language should, actually the speaker should cater to the audience. The speaker should fulfill the requirements of the audience. If not so, speaker fails, right? If he is unable to meet the requirements of the audience while he is speaking, right, during his speech or whatever, then for that, the speaker should be able to use appropriate language, okay, that matches with the audience. For simple example, if there are small children in the audience, then the speaker should be careful to use simple language, right? Short sentences, simple vocabulary, words with the direct meanings, less idioms, and the use of examples. The examples should be very familiar to the kids, like that. But that sort of language will not be like suitable if there are adults in the audience. Okay, right. So audience is another factor when we talk about using language appropriately. So in communicative approach, okay, when like the teacher focuses on communication in teaching language, right? These are the factors that have to be considered, right? Whether the learner has the linguistic competence, whether the learner has an understanding about the social background, right, of the language use, right? These are the things that are highlighted in communicative approach, right? There are a lot of advantages. You can see them here. Yeah. Yes, there are advantages. You have 6 different advantages of the communicative approach, right? Can just go through these points, right? It provides for the teaching of everyday real world language used in variety of socio-cultural situations in which features of pronunciation, vocabulary, grammar, and culture are selected, right? Grammar and culture are selected and graded according to their priority in actual communication. Lengthy sentence, right? Lengthy sentence. See whether you understand that idea. In communicative approach, teacher primarily, okay, pays attention to teach the everyday real world language in the classroom to her children, to her students, right? The language which is used in real world situations. But real world situations of language can vary, can widely vary depending on different socio-cultural situations. Pronunciation can be different, the vocabulary items, grammar patterns, and even the culture. Different cultures are involved in same language, but depending on where the language is used, which country, for example, and in which speech community, right? The cultural background changes now. Accordingly, the use of language also changes. So, giving attention to these factors, right? Teaching the real world language, how to use the target language in the real world. Teaching that is happening in communicative approach, and that is one advantage because learners are exposed to the real world language. They are not learning artificial language, okay, that is limited to the documents only or to the books only. No, they are learning natural language, right? That is one main benefit, advantage. Another one, it recognizes that the students must have a real purpose for using language, real purpose. So, learning, teaching, as well as learning process are not mechanical, okay? Because in using communicative approach, teacher creates a need within the learners to use language. And the learners use the target language with a real purpose, which means to get whatever kind of communicative act completed, or to get whatever language function fulfilled, right? Otherwise, they are not just repeating the lines of a role play or a dialogue by, I mean, just reading a textbook, nothing like that, right? Even if they do so, it is done with a purpose, with a real, authentic purpose behind it. The basic purpose is communication. And with that, the learners learn language. Okay? And the language user feels satisfied on his own performance. And that acts as a motivating factor, right? Satisfaction is at the top. Okay, right? Now, do you think in Sri Lanka, the students in language classes are happy? I mean, you can just guess and tell me in some idea. Are they happily learning the English language? Happy in the sense here, I interpret the word happy with this idea, right? Satisfied, satisfaction, happy in that sense, right? Otherwise, happiness has many meanings. Yeah, but here I mean the satisfaction on his own performance. Do you think the students in schools have that satisfaction that they have performed, they are performing well? Like that kind of satisfaction, what do you think? Any idea? Anybody likes to tell anything about that? You don't have an idea. Okay, you just think about yourselves, right? Think about yourselves. While you were schooling, were you satisfied about your English performance? Some time ago anyway, right? During your school time. I'm not asking about your higher education.
Not much, madam.
Not much. Why is that?
According the subject teacher.
Teacher is the biggest factor. Is that so? Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am.
Well, in the sense, why I mean, teacher in the sense, there are a lot of things regarding the teacher, no? I mean, her method, or like some teachers are very like strict. So is it that reason? Oh, yeah. What about the teacher? Or some teachers do not explain a lot about the teacher means what about the teacher? That this.
Madam.
Yeah, sorry, Sumaya.
Teaching method.
Teaching method. Is there any other idea? Okay, thanks, Sumaya. Any
Okay.
other? Any other idea also? Just think about your experience, your personal experience of learning the English language, or else you can just think about any other person. Yes. Kanchan.
We didn't have much opportunities to use the language. We
Yeah,
just learned the grammar rules and writing things.
that's all. You mean you didn't get chances to speak?
Yeah.
Speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Speaking are neglected there.
Pardon?
Speaking and listening parts were neglected in our.
Speaking and listening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mostly reading and writing. They are focused even in examinations, no? Right. Okay. So which means you were not happy. You were not satisfied fully. Is that the point?
Yes.
Yes, even now, Sora, you must have been talking about your own experience, right? That's some many years ago, but still nowadays also you find similar situation in most of the schools, don't you think so? Right? Somewhat similar situation is existing even now, right? Because the students, they are not that much like they don't have this satisfaction kind of thing. I am not generalizing the point, right? Okay, I'm not generalizing. There are many situations where the learners are learning the language happily. And at the end of the day, they leave the classroom with a sense of achievement, performance. That kind of things happen, but not many, right? In the sense, most of the situations we find the vice, right? Vice versa issues. Uh, they are not very much happy or satisfied regarding their own performance because most of those situations the teachers are not using communicative approach to teach the English language. Instead, what is mostly happening is that teachers are they're just following the textbook, the lessons in the textbook, because they have to cover the syllabus also. That is the basic requirement expected from them now. So they just cover these areas given in the textbook, and they make students do the exercises or the activities in the workbook and nothing beyond that, right? So the students do not get opportunities to use language naturally. To fulfill their communicative needs, they don't use language. That's the point, right? So instead they learn English mechanically, either in the form of memorizing some vocabulary list, right? Or just memorizing or learning some grammar rules by heart, just drilling, okay? It is doing only that kind of activities, not using the language for any other real purpose. Because of that, right, they are not usually left with a feeling of satisfaction regarding that their performance, means satisfaction thinking that they have done something. That kind of satisfaction is not there in most of the situations. But in communicative approach, that is there. That is a benefit, other benefit. And it itself is a motivating factor. The learners are made to learn more, right? They feel like attending classes more and more. Motivation is generated in this kind of a situation, right? Okay, and number 4, he's recognized the society where he uses the language successfully. In the society, right? He is recognized in the society where he uses the language successfully, yeah. That is a general benefit. Okay, because he is recognized in the society because he can handle language very well. He can handle language. Which language? Real world language. He can get the communicative needs once he is in the society using the real world authentic language. So he gets the recognition automatically. And he can get his works done easily, very easily. Right? And also another benefit, it aims at giving practical aspect of using the language. Yeah, that is what earlier I meant by real world language, right? Practical aspect of using the language. And it is situational, meaningful, motivating others, and is self-rewarding. Yeah. Situational, according to the situation, language is taught, how language is changing, that idea is given to the students, and it has meaning and motivating the learners as well as self-rewarding, right? Which means the learners are left with a kind of sense that they have learned something useful, that they have learned something that can be used in their everyday lives. That sense of achievement is there, right? So these are all the benefits or advantages of using communicative approach. And these advantages are on the side of the students, right? The learners. Learners get all these advantages. Right, okay. So when we talk about the communicative approach, under that, CLT is the most important teaching method. Now, approach is something bigger, right? Under that, the target language can be taught in different ways. CLT is one of these specific ways that can be used that can be used by the teacher, right, under communicative approach, right? Okay, so what is this CLT? Communicative language teaching. Now, under current trends also we are meeting this, okay, CLT. The basic idea behind CLT. What is the basic idea, right? That means teaching language to the students via communication. Right? Now look at this idea. Right. The main purpose of learning any language is to communicate our thoughts and to others. Right? We can't forget that fact, no? Right? Why are we learning language? Why should we learn a language? Whatever language. The main purpose should be to communicate. Now you can just say you learn English language because you have a purpose to migrate to another country and find a job there. For example, you can think like that. But even then, okay, if you go seeking further and further to the core of this incident, right? You go to another country, you, find a job there. Behind all these things, what is there at the core? Communication. That is why you learn the English language. Because even if you go to another country, right? If you can't, you will not be able to survive if you can't communicate with those people there. That is why you need to learn the language. Okay, right? So communication is the basic purpose behind learning language. Okay, and whatever the language we learn, it should focus the ways and means to use it for our communication purpose. We can't deviate from this, right? We can't deviate from this basic purpose of communication. And for effective communication, one must master all aspects of the language, linguistics being the most important one. Yeah. So if you want to be a very good communicator, right? Effective communicator, that means effective communicator means not just a speaker only, right? Listen as well. You can be an effective communicator as a speaker if you can communicate your idea, which is there in your mind, accurately and clearly to your listener, right? If you can communicate the idea in your mind clearly and correctly to your listener, you are effective speaker. And you are an effective listener if you can understand the idea communicated to you by the speaker as how the speaker intends, mostly, more or less, closer to the speaker's interpretation. If you can understand it, then you are an effective listener. Right. So to be either a speaker or a listener, you have to know all the aspects of language. Right? Having speaking skill is not enough. And having listening skill only is not enough. And you just leave these two. If you think that you can write very well using the English or whatever target language, even then you can't say that you know language, right? Having the writing skill only itself is not enough. So for a person to communicate effectively, all the aspects of the language should be like known to him, right? He should know and should have the skills, right? And verbal communication is possibly only when the speaker and listener physically present and know the context, right? But for effective communication, both words and structures are needed, whether it is verbal in the sense or a written communication, word structures, the knowledge of these things is required. So you can't, as I told, having only the speaking ability is not enough, right? But Chomsky disapproved the structural linguistic theory and introduced the idea creativity and uniqueness of individual sentences as fundamental characteristic of language. I think you know about Noam Chomsky, right? We meet him in linguistic theories, language theories, especially talking about innatism, right? So already now you know about structuralism, structural linguistic theory, right? So Chomsky, he doesn't believe a lot about structural linguistic theory. Instead, he has introduced this creativity, introduce the idea, creativity and uniqueness of individual sentences as fundamental characteristic of language, creativity and uniqueness. In structural approach, basically we think about, we focus about the structure of language, being thorough with the structure, right? But Chomsky argues against that, right? He prioritizes creativity and uniqueness of individual sentences, not individual sentences as part of a common structure. They have their own unique qualities and creative qualities. That is what Chomsky highlighted there, right? And then we have this applied linguist coming into the scene. Like Canling, Widdowson, Firth, Halliday, they are also coming later on, right, to the scene and talking about this the communicative approach more broadly, right? I mean, this promoting Chomsky's view, functional aspect of language, right? Yeah, functional and communicative potential of language. They were highlighting that area, that is actually the beginning, right? The initiation of this particular approach or a language method called CLT, right? Okay, right. We are meeting CLT again, I think, under trends. So we'll talk about it. And there's another approach that is called eclectic approach. Eclectic. That is quite recent one. Okay, recent in the sense, don't think that 1 or 2 years ago only this was founded. No, it's more older than that, right? But still, this was the latest approach. Now, you need to get the basic idea behind this. What do you mean by eclectic approach, right? It means choosing and accepting freely from various sources. No method is superior and no method is inferior, right? No. No method is superior, no method is inferior. Every method has its own merit and demerits, right? So no method is perfect and totally acceptable. This is our understanding based on the analysis and approaches we have made so far of different methods. Yeah, right. Now, by the time eclectic approach come to the scene, right? Comes to the scene. Earlier, it was like, okay, structural approach is the best. People found, those who founded structural approach had reasons to say so, right? Structural approach has these advantages, so it is the best. And in return, right, as a response to these approaches, later on communicative approaches came into being, criticizing the shortcomings of earlier methods and telling, okay, instead, these methods are better likewise. But at the end, right, after all these approaches, finally, this eclectic approach has come into the scene with the idea that no method is perfect. So the teacher, in teaching the target language in the classroom, right, should go for a kind of variations. Teacher should not stick into one method only throughout. throughout the lesson or throughout the course or throughout the program, right? It can be a mixture of several different methods. So it says the teacher can use the good things in one method and good things in another method likewise, leaving out the drawbacks behind, leaving out the problems behind. The teacher can make use of the good things, the advantages points, the positive things in any method, right, in teaching the language. And that is the basic meaning of eclectic approach, right? Okay. The teacher is the competent person. Then when the teacher is following the eclectic approach, you should understand the role of the teacher is highlighted. Obviously that happens, right? Because teacher should be able to understand, teacher should have a clear understanding about the methods, right? Almost all the methods and what are the good things and what are the problems even. She or he should be capable enough to filter the good things and use them, right? And not to use the other issue, right? Methods with issues. So the teacher should be a competent person to decide on the method depending upon the classroom dynamics, right? So classroom dynamics, the different factors, right? Different variables in the classroom. Accordingly, teacher should be able to go for a best mixture of methods. And he can have a compromise of using various aspects of the methods discussed so far. So even in some cases, some teachers may use some methods which might not have come to light. Yeah. Because now here the teacher can be very creative and innovative. Teacher herself or himself can have her own ways of teaching, combining several methods together. That's there. Right? So it is not necessary to always use the grammar translation method only, or to direct method only, or no need of using the CLT all the time. Teacher can be more creative and have a combination, as I told. So the role of the teacher is very much important in eclectic approach. Yeah. Different activities for developing oral skill have to be carried out. If you talk about the oral skill, right? And question answer technique can be followed, and only when required, the teacher can use mother tongue for explaining some abstract words, phrases, or situations. You know, mother tongue is, there are some methods that promote mother tongue usage, and there are some methods that do not promote, that restrict mother tongue. So then and there necessary, teacher can use the mother tongue, okay, effectively in teaching the target language. Yeah, and the teacher can use the playway method as it gives an immense pleasure to the learner, right? As much as possible, apt audio-visual aids to be used for effective learning, and teacher must manipulate his techniques to suit the needs and standards of his students, the time, material, and aids available on hand to realize his objectives of teaching English, right? Okay, I hope you follow these ideas. So it's not like it's not certain, okay? You can't say that eclectic approach should be exactly like this, like it should be a combination of this much of that method and this much of this method. Likewise, it's not that fixed. Teacher has the freedom to go for a creative mixture, either by using mother tongue or by using visual aids, even using activities, right? Playway method. By adding a variety, teacher can use the language. And that is the highlighted point in eclectic approach. And you have other terms like eclectic method, complete method, integrated method, likewise, right? All these terms refer to the same idea, eclectic approach. Quite interesting approach anyway, right? Okay, right. Now this is the latter part of our main discussion on recent trends in teaching of English language, right? Okay, so there we are going to have a very brief look at these three methods, CLT, again CLL, TBLT, ABL. That means communicative language teaching, cooperative language learning, task-based language teaching, and activity-based learning. So I told you we are going to have a look at them very briefly. So you need to have a brief idea only, okay? Better if you know something more, but at least have this brief ideas. Yeah, so what do you think about this? CLT we earlier also met, no? You have within the box the basic idea about what CLT is, and then you have the objectives. Yeah. CLT, I have given the basic idea only there, right? So it's an approach to language education that emphasizes interaction as both the means and the ultimate goal of learning. Interaction. So language learning happens through interaction. Interaction means communication, in other words, right? As both the means and the goal of learning. Means of learning is interaction, and also goal of learning is also the interaction. So without interaction, we can't talk about CLT. Okay, unlike traditional methods that focused primarily on grammar and vocabulary, CLT prioritizes the development of communicative competence. Okay, communicative competence that is expected to be achieved through interaction by using the target language for the purpose of communication, right? So there are several objectives behind CLT. It basically aims at developing communicative ability in the learners, right? This communicative ability is what, sorry, of course I didn't cut it. Yeah, communicative ability means this communicative competence, right? So one main objective of CLT is to develop the communicative competence of the learners. And also importance is given to meanings, functions rather than structure of the language. Meanings and functions of the language. That is considered to be more important than the grammatical structure. Structure, when we talk about structure, we mean grammatical structure, right? Okay. And task-based language practices helps the learners to acquire a better language skill. Anyway, CLT and TBLT, both are interrelated, right? Actually, TBLT means task-based language teaching is one type of CLT. You understand? If you just draw it like this, CLT, that is communicative language teaching. TBLT comes under that. You understand? Although you find these as separate types of language teaching methods, TBLT comes under CLT. Okay. Yes, in CLT, a balanced importance is given to all the four language skills. That means listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Balance, importance. But in if you just compare CLT with the other old methods, grammar translation method, priority goes to what? What do you think about grammar translation method? From LSRW, where does the priority go? Can anyone recognize without looking at the notes or anything from your memory or understanding? In grammar translation method, what do we prioritize from all the 4 skills? LSRW, which one is given from it?
Writing.
Writing, exactly. Writing, to certain extent, reading also. Right? Audiolingual method?
Listening. Speaking.
Listening. Speaking as well as listening. Listening and speaking, mostly. Direct method? Direct method is not that old. It has come quite after grammar translation method. But do you think all the 4 skills are highlighted in direct method also? No. Their direct method is already we have discussed these things, right? Teaching language directly. Like I think I have played a small video also, right? Okay, there the teacher is doing some demonstrations and teaching the language. Action verbs, can you remember that video? So they are also listening and speaking are more highlighted than the other parts. But talking about CLT, other than listening and speaking, even reading and writing, all the 4 skills are given equal importance, right? Equal importance. That's the special thing here. Right, then we have another one, cooperative language learning. Cooperative language, CLL. That's the short form. Here you can see I have given very short points, right? Limited ideas, but never mind. Could you please go through these 2 boxes? One is from this Oslan and Kagan, right? There we is coming in the first box. Okay, anyway, just please read these 2 boxes.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, right. So what do these Oslan and Kagan say about cooperative learning, cooperative language learning? It's a group learning activity, right? Organized so that learning is dependent on the socially structured exchange of information. Learning is dependent on the, now this is the view of someone else, right? These two people. But it would be useful, I think, for you to understand this. Learning is dependent on the socially structured exchange of information between learners in groups, and in which each learner is held accountable for his or her own learning and is motivated to increase the learning of others. Right. Mainly, what do they say here? Learning language by being engaged in a group work by means of cooperation and collaboration. That's the idea. Okay. So their main argument is that learning is dependent on so many various factors. Like what? That means the learning is influenced, or it changes according to so many factors, like what? Socially structured exchange of information. How information is exchanged by two people or by many people in a group. Right? Okay. What sort of a group do they mean? Where each learner is held accountable for his or her own learning. That means these group members have the responsibility of their own learning and also is motivated to increase the learning of others also. So in such a situation, in such a group, right, the learning takes place. That is the focus in cooperative language learning. Learning language by being cooperative, in short. Okay, right. Yeah, so you can get the basic idea in the next box also. I think that is more, easier than the first box. In cooperative learning, group activities are the major mode of learning, right? Group activities. And the part of comprehensive theory and system for the use of group work in teaching, right? And group activities are carefully planned that can ensure maximum participation of the students to each other's learning. Okay, basically what you should understand as cooperative language learning is language learning takes place in a group in the mode of activities, right? By means of engaged in activities, and these activities are meant to be carried out in groups where the learners need to communicate, collaborate, and help each other exchange their ideas and information by using the target language, right? Share their even feelings and knowledge, and achieve a common target. Usually, when there are activities in a group, right? There has to be a target, end, a goal. The teacher assigns the students with some tasks, activities, where there has to be a kind of goal to be achieved. So in order to achieve this goal of the task or activity, the students have to get together and work for that. So they learn language by being cooperative. That's the idea there, right? In this endeavor, they learn language. That's the argument behind cooperative language learning. And something similar you find in TBLT also, actually, right? Something quite similar. Task-based language teaching, as the term itself says, right? Learning language by being involved in tasks. Okay, now here also I'll give you a few minutes. 2-3 minutes. Yeah, please read. It will help you rather than I am reading. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Right. Others?
Okay, ma'am.
Right. So the first one is again an idea given by these people, right? Yeah, by Gate, Norris, Brandon, Lewin. Okay. One basic idea about task-based language teaching. Right. So before we think about that, let's talk about the idea given in the second box. Actually, it's not an idea. This is some sort of a simple explanation about TBLT. Right? Okay, we'll first look at this. Task-based teaching offers the opportunity for natural learning inside the classroom, right? Natural learning, and it emphasizes meaning over form, but can also cater for language form also, right? And it is intrinsically motivating. I'm underlining the key ideas there, right? Which you can use to remember and understand what TBLT is. It is compatible with a learner-centered educational philosophy, but also allows for teacher input and direction, right? And it caters to the development of communicative fluency while not neglecting accuracy, right? And it can be used alongside a more traditional approach. Right. Okay. Now, basically, these are the characteristics or advantages of TBLT. Here I have underlined there. Okay. But basically, what do you mean by task-based language teaching? Teaching the target language, okay, by giving the students with some task or by assigning the students with some particular precise exact task. So mostly task-based language teaching can be used with groups, right? When the students are working in groups, the teacher gives them some particular task. And, definitely, just like the earlier method, right? Cooperative language learning, when the students have to involve in a task, which means at the end, there has to be some kind of goal to be achieved. Without any goal, there are no tasks, right? The students are given a task and they have this target to be achieved. So to achieve the target, they have to work collectively, right? And they will have to do a lot of things. They have to get together, discuss, design a plan first, then Google information. Sometimes they may have to go out of the classroom in order to find information. Then they come back and share their findings, right? And they again explore more, share their findings, and they organize these findings. They have to write these things. Okay, and they will have to present them in front of the class, right? So likewise, so many different subtasks, sub-activities are there in major task. So finally, they have to achieve something. So while the students are doing all these things, right? They have to use the target language as the medium of communication. They can't be using the mother tongue. They have to use the target language, then get the things done. So directly what is happening is that they are doing a task. That is what superficially happening. But indirectly, they are polishing the language. They are acquiring a lot of vocabulary items, sometimes grammar patterns and pronunciation. So many new things of the language they achieve. They acquire, sometimes they learn also, right? So indirectly, they learn the language, acquire the language. But the main focus is on completing a task. Okay, that is what is happening basically in task-based language teaching. And these are the advantages and also the features of task-based learning, as I have underlined, right? Natural learning takes place, natural learning because they have to use language, target language to have communication among themselves in order to get the things done while they are doing the task. So that should be definitely everyday real world language. Natural language means that. Okay, and there, the meaning, the learners have to make sure that they express the proper meaning. I mean, without meaning, communication doesn't occur now, right? So they have to make sure that they can communicate the proper meaning, right? And also this factor, intrinsically motivating. You know, when you talk about motivation, there are two types, no? Extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. So why people are learning the English language? Due to both, right? More or less, now some people have more extrinsic motivation and some learners have more intrinsic motivation. From person to person, these things change. But both are there more or less, right? Extrinsic motivation means due to external factors, some people are persuaded to learn a language, right? If you relate it to language learning. External factors like, for example, they need to pass an examination. So they have to learn the language. Without learning the language, they can't sit for that exam, right? So that is one. Another reason maybe they have to, a person has to migrate to another country, right, to find a job for employment opportunity. But without the language of that country, he can't do so. So he has to learn the language, extrinsic motivation, right? Okay, etc. There are many more external factors like that, because of which a person has to learn language. A person is made to learn language, right? That is extrinsic. And intrinsic motivation is different, right? These external factors are not involved, right? Just think that a person learns the language, the English language, let's say, right? Because he likes the language. He has some curiosities within himself, talking about the structure of the language, the grammar patterns, maybe, right? Or maybe talking about the accent and pronunciation. He has an interest to have an accent, like native like accent. He likes, okay? So that is something which comes from within. This kind of needs are coming from within the person, right? That is identified as intrinsic motivation, right? If we come back to our point here, in task-based language teaching, right? The learners are made to use the language powered by intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation because within themselves they feel like knowing the language to communicate. It is not extrinsic, right? If you limit it to extrinsic motivation, it would be just like to complete the task. No, somebody can argue like that. No, this goes beyond that. Right? Intrinsically, they develop a likeness and a need, right? Likeness because of the need that they have to know the language. Otherwise, they can't go ahead with the gang, with the students, with their friends, right? So they have to learn the language, which will add a value to themselves. Okay, so that is very much important in task-based language learning rather than extrinsic motivation. If you are led by intrinsic motivation, that would be that would be stronger, right? And more effective. And it is learner-centered. This TBLT is quite learner-centered. You don't find teacher is playing a big role, right? Because teacher is there just to provide the facilities with the students and work like the guide, right? Giving them necessary guidelines and instructions and advices on how to do the task. That's all. Sometimes supervise and monitor as well, right? So the responsibility of learning is on the hands of the learners. So TBLT is learner-centered, right? And development of communicative fluency, then accuracy. But accuracy means grammatical accuracy, right? Grammatical accuracy, we don't say that it is not considered. But more than that, communicative fluency is focused there, right? Okay, so these are the features of task-based language teaching, right? I told you it comes under CLT. It is one method of practicing communicative language teaching, right? So I think you can get some idea by looking at what these educationists have told about TBLT, right? It is an educational framework for the theory and practice of teaching second or foreign languages, right? And it is based on a constellation of ideas issuing from philosophy of education, theories of second language acquisition, empirical findings on effective instructional techniques, and the exigencies of language learning in contemporary society. Okay, actually, they are looking at TBLT from like a at the top, right? It's like a very general view about TBLT, not particularly talking about what TBLT is, right? So therefore, you don't have to try hard to keep this extract in your mind, right? No need of learning by heart. But basically, it is a kind of, according to this education, is TBLT is a kind of like collection of so many concepts that are found in educational philosophy and second language learning and acquisition theories, right? And also talking about instructional techniques, right? And language learning. It's a kind of mixture. TBLT has come from a kind of collection from all these ideas. Okay, so that is somewhat a kind of background view about TBLT. But other than that, better if you can keep these ideas that are there in the second box in your mind, right? They are the features of TBLT, right? Then we have activity-based learning. Then, yeah, we are okay, that's all. We are finishing with activity-based learning, right? Just like the previous ones, I want you to go through this as well. This and the last part. Okay, let's quickly go through this. Okay, right. Hope you have roughly gone through these ideas about activity-based learning. Activity-based learning is very much kind of common method in teaching the language to the primary students. Right? If you have some kind of understanding about curriculum of the English language, right? Usually textbooks are starting from grade 3 onwards, right? Yeah, textbooks have in grade 3, 4, 5 like that, but grade 1 and 2, students in grade 1 and 2 are taught the English language primarily through activity-based learning. Okay, that is the principle of teaching English to the grade 1 and grade 2 students. What's happening there? You have two extracts by these famous people, right? Harfield, Davies, Hayday, Pankow, Kenley, right? 20s to 2007. And Churchill's year is not there, right? Anyway, first idea, students actively participate in the learning experience rather than sit as passive listeners. Very simple idea about what activity-based learning. Right? Active participation in learning experience. Right? Which means rather than sitting as passive listeners, this kind of thing will not happen. I mean, will not work, will never work with the very young learners, right? Teachers can't expect to be teaching them language or whatever while making them sit and listen to these teachers. It will never happen. So instead of that method, the learners themselves are actively involved in some activities. Through that, they learn the target, right? Maybe the target language or anything else. Here we are talking about teaching language, right? So active participation is considered to be the topmost requirement in activity-based learning, right? According to Churchill, activity-based learning helps learners to construct mental models that allow for higher order performance, like applied problem solving and transfer of information and skills, higher order performance. They are cognitive skills, right? Cognitive skills are quite polished by making the learners involved in activities like problem solving, right? And also transferring information and skills, this kind of thing. These are quite advanced works, but the teacher can simplify them and apply to the grades as appropriate. Okay, right? So this what is happening inside the brain is directly related to this language acquisition and learning process via activity-based concept, right? Rather than directly getting knowledge or information from the teacher, right? The students themselves are made to involve in some physical activities, not only right activities in the sense not only group discussions, right? It can involve more physical activities. Right, so you have some characteristics of activity-based learning also at the end. Hope you have gone through this. Anything which is not clear? It uses child-friendly educational aids to foster self-learning and allows a child to study according to his or her aptitude and skill, right? Now, these terms, they are underlined there. They are important for you to notice these characteristics of activity-based learning. Self-learning is regulated, fostered, right? And the child studies according to his or her aptitude and skill, right? So these concepts play a major role in activity-based learning, right? Aptitude of a learner as well as skills of a learner are the deciding factors of the rate of learning. Because this is self-learning, right? Under the system, the curriculum is divided into small units, each a group of self-learning materials, right, comprising attractively designed study cards for English, Tamil, maths, science, and even social science. Right? Okay. Yeah, there are now this SLM self-learning materials. You know, this is self-learning, right? Activity-based learning, mostly self-learning is the one that is happening now, SLM, right? I hope you understood about these self-learning materials, right? This is designing study cards on certain subjects is one example, right? One example for self-study materials or self-learning materials. There can be a variety of materials even than this, right? When a child finishes a group of cards, he completes one milestone. And activities in each milestone includes games, right? Rhymes, drawing, and even songs to teach a letter or a word from a sentence to maths and science or understand a concept. Now, can you remember in primary grades, this song book is given to the students, right? A song book is used. So that is one method of using activity-based learning, right? With that, what's happening actually? The song book is only one SLM, self-learning material. Other than that, there can be many more things like, as you can find here, different games or rhyme in activities and even drawings. Okay. So each activity is considered to be a kind of like completing one milestone, right? Okay. And to complete that, the students need to work with any of these either games, rhymes, drawing, and even songs from which they learn something, right? A letter sometimes, or it can be just a single word, and another ability to create a sentence. Even if you go beyond that, beyond the language learning, talking about maths and science, right? Something small related to these areas, and also understanding a single concept. So likewise, some simple thing is expected to be learned by the learner with these self-learning materials, right? Okay. And the child takes up an exam card only after completing all the milestones in a subject. Okay, this card system is quite considered to be a major means of implementing activity-based learning. But I don't know how far this is used in Sri Lankan schools, right? It's in activity-based learning. This is quite effective method, right? Okay, I think you got some sort of an idea about activity-based learning. But please be noted that I have included only brief points, right? The information that are relevant, basically needed for you to understand the concept, that's all, not the details. So if you think that these informations are not enough for you to fully understand about these concepts, please read more. Okay, you can Google and read more and like strengthen your understanding about these concepts if you think that these informations are not enough. Okay, right. So that is the end of our discussion on Unit 3, right? Okay, if I go back to the beginning, right, these are the areas we covered in this unit. Methods, approaches, and finally recent trends in the teaching of English. And very briefly only, I was discussing about the recent trends. Okay, right, then I'm going to close that and open the next lesson. Okay, this is unit number 4. Right, in unit number 4, I have uploaded this material in your groups, right? Hope you have received it. Right, now these are the areas of study. You can find basically there are 2 areas, vocabulary enrichment and enhancing reading skills, right? So what are the ways and means as well as strategies a teacher can use to improve the vocabulary of the students and also how to improve the reading skills of the learners. These are the 2 areas that are going to be focused in our discussion, right? In unit number 4, right? So we are going to start with the first one. So all of a sudden, right, I changed from one unit to another unit. Therefore, I'm going to give you slight reading time. Okay. I have sent this knowledge, I think, very recently, maybe yesterday. Can't remember. Yeah. Yes, yesterday, I think I sent this. Well, so please go through about vocabulary enrichment, right? Vocabulary enrichment, these areas about acquisition rich environment, acquisition poor environment, and kinds of vocabulary up to this point, right? First few slides up to number 8, this one. From 9 onwards, we will work separately up to 8. Okay, you think I have the slide numbers are there in your note also. Right, please go through quickly in the sense, take your time, no hurry, but you have to go through. Right? Because all of a sudden new area, no? So therefore I don't want to be mechanically reading these lines, right? Okay, I'll give you around 5-7 minutes, right? Go through this. Okay. Done. You got some idea about what this unit
Yes.
is? Yeah. Of course, you can't be reading everything now, right? But I just wanted you to be a little bit more familiar about the topics we are going to discuss, right? I will be starting this only and we'll continue to the next session as well, right? This unit 4. Okay, now here, as I earlier mentioned, we pay attention to the vocabulary and reading skill enrichment or improvement, right? Okay, so you know about vocabulary of a language. Yes. Now, already we have touched about the importance of communication in teaching, learning process of the language, right? So in that process, vocabulary plays a very big role, right? It is a tool through which communication in any language is possible, right? Yeah. Now, when we talk about vocabulary, actually, right? Vernacular language vocabulary is not a big problem, right? Vernacular language you can understand to be the mother tongue, mostly the native languages, no, right? Native language of a person. It can be one single language or more than one language, right? When it comes to talk about native language or else the mother tongue, they're the vernacular languages. We call them vernacular, the languages that are used in the native country, local languages. Right, acquiring vocabulary of the local languages, so mother tongue is easy, right? With the time being, when you use your mother tongue, automatically you will acquire. You don't have to have any effort to improve the vocabulary of your mother tongue, right? Automatically you will acquire. But that is totally different from the learning of vocabulary of the second language or foreign language, right? Okay. Because, you know, the reason lies here. Environment or exposure. Because, you know, if we talk about the English language vocabulary, right, we learn English being in this country. If we think about the learners or students, basically school students, right, when they are learning the English language, they have to do it based on Sri Lankan context, where the native languages are something else, right? Okay, then what about the chances of learning vocabulary of the second language or the English language? The chances are very low, right? Chances are very low because they have not the exposure or the right kind of environment is not there in so many situations. Exposure is there, but we can't expect, right? The right kind of environment or the exposure is provided with each and every English language learner. That is the basic reason why vocabulary is quite poor, right? Yeah. So the type of environment that is like advocated in improving vocabulary could be either acquisition rich environment or right, should be acquisition rich environment, not the acquisition poor environment, right? So this is advocated, whereas acquisition poor environment is considered to be not to have a sort of environment, right? Okay, in talking about vocabulary improvement, so you can just compare between acquisition rich and acquisition poor environments here, right? You have gone through these areas, hope you are clear of what they mean, right? What about acquisition rich environment? What is happening there? This is the idea, right? It is a kind of environment where the learners have more more opportunities, right? More opportunities to acquire the target language. Opportunities. The learners are exposed to the language wherever they go, right? Not only the school is a place from where he learns the language, but also from home and even the society. Everywhere, wherever the learner goes, he or she can get so many chances to acquire vocabulary, right? Acquisition rich environment. And everybody around him is a teacher. Not only the teacher in the classroom, right? Everybody around him. Wherever he goes, whoever there would be, they are functioning a kind of source of vocabulary, right? A teacher, as teacher. Which means he can learn the language from whoever he meets. Yeah. So acquiring the language skills of English as a second language will be to the maximum if the learners are provided with the acquisition rich environment. That is obvious, right? These factors actually don't have to particularly think of. They are obvious factors, but these two terms may be new to you: acquisition rich environment and acquisition poor environment. So therefore, just be familiar with these two terms. Okay, right? Talking about acquisition poor environment, you find the other way around, opposite. What is happening there? Less opportunities to acquire the target language. Less opportunities. Opposite of acquisition rich environment, right? The learners may have scope only in formal situations, right? Which means probably the school situation only. And other than the school, wherever the learner goes, he won't get, right? He will not get enough opportunities to acquire new words or new vocabulary items. The learners in this environment do not get cleared of their doubts then and there, right? And they, even if they have any doubt talking about the language or about the words or about the morphological aspect of words, right? These doubts remain as they are, right? No chance to get them clarified. An accumulation of doubts may lead to ignore them, right? When you have more and more doubts, what will happen with the time being? You just tend to ignore them. The doubts will remain as doubts in the minds of the learners forever, or sometimes what will happen? Doubts will vanish from the minds of the learners. Either the first possibility or the second possibility, neither is good, right? Both are negative, talking about the learning aspect of a person. Having more and more doubts is problematic because you have so many doubts in your mind. So you are not sure of any of these things. Doubt is that, no? So you are not sure means you don't have the confidence. And if you are not confident enough, you can't use language properly. That is how these doubts can affect you, affect a learner. Right. That is on one hand. And on the other hand, if you have so many more doubts, with the time being, you tend to forget them, right? Will vanish. So you don't, these doubts will vanish without any solution, without any doubt, without any kind of answer. So in future also you have these problems there, right? So those are the issues in having acquisition poor environment. And these issues are not there in acquisition rich environment where the learners get chances to solve or clarify their doubts. So in the learning process, you know, right, there will be so many questions in the mind of the learner, thinking about the function of language. And now here we are talking about vocabulary. Then see how many doubts a learner can have about the vocabulary of the target language, right? There may be many words, right? The learner doesn't have doesn't know the meaning of, right? That is one problem. Another problem may be the learners have so many ideas in the mind, but no word, right? No appropriate word to express these ideas. That is the commonest issue, I think, right? It is not lack of ideas. Ideas are there all the time, but lack of vocabulary. Right? So these problems are not answered being in acquisition co-environment. That's the problem. Right. Okay. So when you talk about the kinds of vocabulary, there are two types of words, no, right? And you know about these things in grammar, English grammar, when you talk about English grammar, especially talking about the word classes, you get this knowledge, right? Structural words versus content words. And you can relate these two types to the English grammar, talking about word classes, structural words. Now we have two word classes, open and close. Okay. Then where do you find the structural words? Open or closed? Those who are there in the lecture can think. Yeah. Structural words you find in open word class or closed word class. Just to check your memory about grammar. Any idea? Yes. Structural words.
Open
Okay.
word class.
Structural words. Open word class. Okay. What do you mean by structural words? Another word for structural words is functional words. Functional or structural. Whereas there are other terms for content words like semantic words, lexical words. Okay. Right. Actually, Philip, it should be the other way around. Okay. Structural words we find in close word class. Whereas content words we find in open word class. And open word class contains the categories of words like noun, verb, adjective, adverb. And structural words come under the closed word class. So what do we have in closed word class? Prepositions, conjunctions, auxiliary verbs, determiners, pronouns, interjections, enumerators, like that. Okay, they are the structural words. So basically, you should have a clear understanding. Now, because we are talking about vocabulary, and these two types of words are there in any, the vocabulary of any language, right? So any word can either be a content word or structure word. That's the argument. So you know about as a whole about the nature of the open word class and closed word class, right? Open word class, there are so many differences, but now this is not a grammar lesson, so therefore I don't want to talk a lot about grammar. But one difference between open and closed classes, among many, is that open word class contains words that have a content in them, that have a lexical meaning, right? Content, by means of content, we mean a kind of lexical content, which is not available in the structure words, right? Structure words, instead, they perform some grammatical requirements once they are put in a sentence. Right? They perform grammatical requirements. But content words have lexical meaning, semantic meaning. Okay, so for us to pass a message effectively to a listener or to a reader, we should use which part? Structural words or content words? You tell me. If we leave out this category, we will not be able to pass the message properly. Which category can't we leave? Content words or structure words?
Structure.
Content words. If we leave out content words, right, we will not be able to communicate the message properly. Now, what are content words? Actually, nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. They carry meaning, right? They carry meaning. But structure words, on the other hand, they do not carry meaning, right? Then why do we use structure words? just to maintain the grammatical accuracy of a sentence. They are used to maintain the grammatical accuracy and to make the meaning more perfect. That's all. But the exact meaning is communicated by content words. Philip, is that clear? Did you get the idea about this?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I got it.
Right. So you can find something written here as well. Structure words are part of grammar, right? So I think these lines are clear to you now. These words cannot give a complete meaning independently, right? But we cannot weigh them lowly also. In the sense, right? Okay, now we are using content words to communicate the message, to convey the message. But by telling so, we can't simply ignore the importance of structural words also. Because if we do not use structural words, of course, there won't be grammatical accuracy. Our sentence will be grammatically wrong. That can affect the receiver to understand the message properly. Without proper grammar, now you simply understand, you can understand it when you read something, right? Written in English language. If the sentences are not correct, not grammatically correct, do you think you can smoothly go on reading and you can catch the idea? It's difficult. We can't. Even if the content words are used correctly, right? If the grammar is violated highly or lowly, if grammar is violated, then still we can't decipher the meaning. We can't get the meaning. Yeah, without the structure words, grammatically correct sentences in unfamiliar situations are even not possible, right? Okay. So both types are equally important. That is the argument here. Both types are equally important. Yeah. Content words can give meaning independently. So it's mandatory on the part of the teacher to enrich the list of content words of his pupils because they have independent meanings. Whereas structure words are meaningful once they are used in a particular sentence. I just simply think about the preposition on. Okay, for example, for a simple example, preposition on. So if given in isolation, the teacher can explain the meaning of on, no problem, right? Can explain, but it cannot be done fully, right? The students will never understand the complete meaning of on until on is used in a sentence. The cat is on the table. Then the students will clearly understand what is meant by on. Okay, right? So it is structure dependent actually. Structural words, context dependent. They don't have independent meaning. Independent, complete or perfect meaning, unlike content words. But when you talk about content words, even a word is given in isolation, right? Like table, it has its own meaning. Depending on the context, these content word meanings also undergo changes to some extent. But as a whole, they have independent meaning. So when the teacher is teaching vocabulary to the students, right, content words should be given a priority because they contain independent meanings, which the learners have to know in order to handle the language. Okay, right. So here you have a classification by F.G. French about the words, words of a language, right? In relation to the users, right? I think you have gone through this part as well. We will refer to the classification of French and continue the discussion, right? I think the next day, because if I start this classification, it will take long time. Anyhow, you must have read this part, no, right? This must be clear to you. So we will continue our discussion on enhancing the vocabulary as well as the reading skill in our next session. Right? Okay, as the time is up, I'm going to wind up today's discussion. it's better if you could, I know that you all are busy people, right? You have 6 days lectures. You have one free day also. But whenever you are free, try to just go through these notes. And that is one reason why I'm sending the notes beforehand the lecture, right? Hoping that you would find some time, at least short time to go through the notes. Then I'm not introducing. If you already go through the notes, then I will not be introducing the things anymore. Right? Already you have the familiarity. That is important, right? In this kind of discussion. Anyway, now people are going. Right. Okay, so I'm also going to wind up the discussion. So we'll meet, yeah, next Wednesday. Again, we have the session. All right, then I'll continue, right? Next Wednesday. Good night, all of you.
Good night, ma'am.
Okay, madam. Night, madam.
Thank you.
Thank you.